The season is off and running in Fayetteville as the Arkansas Razorbacks in year one of John Calipari sit 11-6 overall and winless in conference play. Helping us talking about it, break it all down. Friend of the show, John Nabors of Inside Arkansas. Those guys do a fantastic job talking all things Hawgs. He's also the host of Locked On Hawgs as well. John, appreciate you taking the time, and it is a pleasure to have you on. What's going on?
Oh yeah, well no, it's good to be on. I always love being tortured with Razorback talk, so it's going to be great. It's going to be great to discuss it a little bit with you.
I want to make it clear I didn't hold a gun to your head. You could have said no. You could have
That's
said
true,
it.
but no,
It's like a sickness. You can't let it go, John. You just
that's right.
can't let it go.
I'm a glutton for punishment. I love it's my kink, I think. I mean, I just keep coming back for more discussions about Razorback athletics, I guess.
Well, John, let's dive into it again. Year one of the John Calipari era. Again, you guys do a fantastic job over Inside Arkansas. You're live every single day. You're covering every single game. I mean, nobody knows this program, the ins and outs, better than you guys do. So I'm curious, again, when the hiring was made, and I was in Fayetteville over the fall, and I remember driving by Bud Walton. I'd never been there, and just thinking to myself, holy shit, that actually happened. Arkansas hired John Calipari. Like, that was the storyline of the offseason. Now that we've gotten in season, has there been anything that's surprised you about Cal? Have you learned anything about Cal based off what you knew about him at Kentucky, to now, in between obviously getting him, interact and ask questions and, sit through press conferences, seeing him in games? Has anything surprised you to this point about Cal, or has it kind of been what you expected?
Well, I mean, it's been about what I expected from the stance of, his personality. Like, he's done a lot of great things. Like, he's a really nice guy. I mean, he's done things here in the community. He's done things of note for when Bob Holt passed away, an iconic media member. Like, he's done so many cool things and great things in that regard. But, I always felt like as soon as he was coming in to Arkansas, that Arkansas was hiring a celebrity that happened to be a basketball coach. And here in Arkansas, we're very proud of everything that we have here in the state, but we don't have celebrities. It's not a celebrity state. It's something to where we've hired coaches here at Arkansas, and we've seen ones that, like with Bobby Petrino when they hired him from Atlanta Falcons. That was pretty big storylines. Things like that. But this was the first hire that Arkansas had really made where somebody was already on top of the top, and they were coming to you. It wasn't about a trajectory or anything. And this was a larger than life personality. And so since he's come in, I think that's been something that's been really tough for fans to deal with, because here at Arkansas, you're very much wanting connections. You're wanting to feel like you're a part of the program. You feel you're a part of the coach, and that the coach is one of you. And this is not like a knock against Cal. I just think Cal is Cal. That just hasn't really felt that way like you'd feel with other coaches. So a little bit of a disconnect there, but overall, I think everyone's just felt like this was at least going to be a fun regular season, and it really hasn't been in any stretch of the imagination at all to this point.
So, John, I want to start with non-conference play. Let's start with that first. Obviously, Arkansas goes 11-2 in the non-conference, and there were signs of encouragement. Obviously, you beat a top 15 Michigan team. You beat a Miami squad on the road. The two losses against Illinois and Baylor, who, again, a top 10 Baylor team, no shame in that. What did you see from Arkansas in the non-conference game? We'll get into conference play in a second. Did you see anything in non-conference play that gave you optimism? Were there things? Who were the standouts? And is there anything you look back at non-conference play that maybe, looking at conference, has surprised you to the point of them starting 0-4? Like, the biggest takeaways from non-con, obviously Cal's first non-conference slate in Fayetteville.
Well, I know that they dealt with a lot of injuries, and I think that that's maybe what helped a little bit of the understanding of maybe why this was taking a little bit longer than normal. You had Jonas Adu, who was first team All SEC defensive team last year at Tennessee, a big man. Well, from the very beginning of the season, he had been dealing with a pretty significant knee injury, a leg injury, and he didn't play much and didn't play at all for the first few games of the season. Also, Nelly Davis, who is another big time transfer, number one transfer out of the portal, had wrist issues, had a wrist injury, and didn't get to see a whole lot of him. Trevin Brazil was coming back. So in the non-conference, the team was pretty banged up, and Cal made the decision, which I don't think was a bad decision, maybe a risky decision, and it's just not paying out, where he was only going to have about 8 players, really, and the rest of them would be walk-on caliber guys. A risky maneuver, but one that you were hoping to pay out. Well, when the injuries happened, you just didn't have whole lot of depth there. So they had to rely on a lot of guys a little bit more than what maybe they originally thought. That's what people felt like was going on in the regulars or the non-conference slate. But then as Jonas Adu got to get back into the mix, Trevin Brazile got back, and then Nelly Davis started getting back, it hasn't gotten any better. It really hasn't. I mean, there's been times where it's looked all right. There's been times it's looked okay. And there's been times where even the numbers were there. But the team offensively is just lost. It looks like they're a team that don't know how to play together. They don't really have a whole lot of like fun, it seems like, to playing together. I'm not saying they hate each other, don't like each other. They just don't have that emotion. And it's been pretty painful at times just to watch, if you're a fan of college basketball, to watch this team. Offensively, they have no consistency anywhere. They don't have a physical presence because they're getting just boards or killed on them in the offensive side of things. And they don't have a really a willingness, or at least a will to win, and a killer mentality. And it shows, and it's prevalent, and it hasn't gotten better. It's not gotten anything. If anything, it's gotten worse. And right now, you're sitting at 0-4 in the SEC with no end in sight, and there's not really any other teams, because the SEC is so good, that I can point to on the schedule and be like, oh, Arkansas is going to win this game. I think they'll win SEC games. I don't think they're going to go 0-18, but I can't point to any of these games and say these are the games you're going to win. So when the fans have lack of confidence, when everyone has lack of confidence in the team, it's hard to really know what this is going to be like and why it had to be year one. It had to be this bad.
Yeah, and to your point, John, I mean, again, there's just no off nights in the SEC. The conference is obviously a gauntlet. And you look at what Arkansas has faced, again, sitting 0-4 in SEC play. I mean, you play at number 1 Tennessee, a top 25 Ole Miss team that just beat Alabama on their home floor, a top 10 Florida team. I think the one that obviously really stings is the one that, as we talk last night, at LSU, who I don't think anybody is going to mistake as a really, really good team this year in the conference. So through those 4 games, I mean, again, it's been a gauntlet. Obviously, there's no excuses, though, to your point, because everybody's facing the same gauntlet, and it's just going to continue to be tough. Is there anything – what have you seen? I'll first ask to this point. You obviously expanded on it, but is there anything you can look at and any positives? And if not, like, what does Arkansas have to do to get it rolling? Because obviously you look at the next upcoming slate at Mizzou, Georgia at home, Oklahoma at home. Like, that next 3 – and I know Mizzou just obviously beat Florida. So, again, like I said, there's no off nights in the league. But, next 3 feel somewhat manageable. 2 of the 3 at home because, again, after that, you got to go to Kentucky. Bama awaits. So, is there any reason for optimism in your mind that Arkansas, like you mentioned, can start stacking some wins and get it rolling a little bit? And what do they have to do to make that happen?
No. I mean, there's no optimism for it. And I'm not saying that to be over dramatic. It's just I'd like anybody. I challenge anybody to point to who has watched Razorback basketball this year and point to something that's in any way, shape, or form saying this is why it's going to be okay. This is why it's going to be better. I just don't see it. There's just none of that. And when you look at what Arkansas, the expectations that came along with it, I don't think anybody was truly expecting a national championship in year one. I mean, you're hopeful because you got talent and you could see it and all that. But I think most fans here at Arkansas would have been, hey, get to the tournament, get maybe to Sweet 16 if that's where the season ended. Hey, people consider it a success. And you're so far from that you're just wondering how in the world do you have a Hall of Fame coach with this much talent, one of the best NIL programs that money can buy in the basketball program. And this is the result. Like, that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. So I don't have any things to point to. The only way that this team can really get it turned around is if they just start understanding how to play well together, having some fire and energy, and actually, the will to go out there and get it done. But also finding the consistency in what they do best, whatever it is that they do best, do it and utilize it. If it's, shooting threes, which they can, but they're inconsistent there. But if that's what you're going to go in on, okay, going to go all in on it. If you want to go all in on just trying to play lockdown defense and focusing on that, then go in on it. But right now, it just seems like they do a bunch of different things not very well. And when you don't do a lot of things that not very well, it stacks up, it adds up, and you find all new, unique ways to lose games, especially against teams you should. So they don't have a winning mentality. And until they develop that winning mentality, you're going to see the same results for Arkansas this season.
John, has this changed the long-term confidence on what the Calipari era can be at Fayetteville, or does this more so feel like, from the fan base's perspective, just kind of a, hey, it's a it's a rough year one. I think I actually saw or read something, some other Arkansas entity talking about there's been a lot of coaches who have had rough year ones in every single sport, and that it's something that you shouldn't be alarmed by. Is that the overarching feeling of the fan base, or is there concern that maybe this isn't going to work out the way folks hoped it would long term?
No, I mean there is concern. There's legitimate concern because again, I hear people talk about 1 year. Stop. That's not an argument. Not in this modern day. You have John Calipari, a Hall of Fame coach. You have a guy who has the NIL budget out the wazoo. Those two things alone. There's no year one. There, everybody's got new transfers coming in. They got new rosters every single year, and there's no reason and there's no excuse for that. So that's where people are a little bit concerned, especially considering how good the SEC is and what it looks like it's going to still become here in the future. Where's the place going to be? They gotta it could be one thing if Cal came in, had a great year this year, but then next year took a step back. It's not that anybody would be happy about it, but at least it would be some sort of evidence to point to, be like, okay, well, hey, maybe next year it'll bounce back. It just wasn't this year. And maybe that could happen next year. Like maybe it could. But when you go from what Arkansas had with Muss in his final year last year, which a lot of expectations and terribleness and a terrible team, to this year, a new coach and John Calipari and all this talent and the transfer portal and all of that. And I don't even know if this year's team could beat last year's team. That's a bad sign. And that's a bad feeling. And that's where Razorback fans are saying, well, if Cal has all of this stuff and you got Cal, what else is it going to take? I mean, what else can you do if you can't even make the NCAA tournament? Because right now this team's not a tournament team. And until they actually get on a roll here, it's not going to change. But yeah, I think that there is legitimate concerns about the future of Razorbacks basketball under Cal, and only he can be the one that changes that attitude and that mentality. But it just doesn't feel like it's going to be this year.
John, what were the year one expectations for John Calipari's program? And how have those expectations changed based off what you've seen to this point? I mean, would just simply making the tournament at this point be considered a success?
Yeah, at this point for sure. Because until they prove otherwise, it's hard to even think that they're going to be in an NIT. I mean, it's just that bad. But I think the expectations were pretty much what I said before was just, you get to the tournament, because when you get to the NCAA tournament, real basketball programs understand this. Like it's a crapshoot. It's a wild card. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, there's been times where programs made it to the Final Four. I mean, South Carolina made it to the Final Four a couple of years ago. It's like you just never know what's going to happen. And I think everybody understands that. But it's about getting there and putting yourself in the best position. So I think Razorback fans were just expecting something similar to what Cal has done at Kentucky for the past few years, which, not saying, they expected him to lose in the first round. Talking about the regular season, they expected a team that finishes in the top 5 in the SEC and is a program that has a lot of great offense and is one that is highly competitive and gets a higher seed in the SEC tournament, but also the NCAA tournament. That's where it was at. And then once you got to the tournament, get to the Sweet 16. But now that's where it kind of has all come crumbling down, because you don't even look like any of the Kentucky teams. You look worse than any of those Kentucky teams that he ever had. And you don't have the atmosphere, you don't have the energy, you don't have the excitement, and fans just don't know what to do. And so there's just it's awkward. It's very awkward where, hey, if you're winning, no one cares. Winning cures all. But when you're losing and it's year one and you already have that disconnect and you don't feel like you're a part of anything or that you know what the rest of it is going to hold, you're just in purgatory right now as a Razorback fan. You're in true purgatory, wandering in the wilderness for 40 years and not knowing when it's going to end.
John, I want to switch gears. You mentioned the fan involvement, and that's something I've seen you very passionately talk about on social media. And obviously, I've never gotten the opportunity, unfortunately, to get to a game at Bud Walton. That is going to change very, very soon, I'm happy to say. But again, you've been very vocal about the fan involvement, the overall crowd, just the atmosphere at Bud Walton Arena. Where does your frustration come from? And again, I think you even said you were the leader of the student section when you were there. What is missing right now from the atmosphere at Bud Walton? Is it a fan thing? Is it an administration thing? Is it that's the product? Is it all the above? Like what's your biggest gripes right now with the atmosphere at Bud Walton Arena that's considered by many to be, when it's right, the best environment in all of college basketball.
Well, I mean, obviously it starts with the product on the floor. You know, you got to have a winning product, or at least a product that gives people hope that it's going to be winning. That's rule number one. But number two, I think it's accumulation of everything. You know, you had Eric Musselman here, who was an ultimate self promoter. You never had to worry about the university or anybody promoting or marketing the program because Muss did. And I think that there is that element missing where you don't have that when you never had to worry about it. I think it's that. I think also, and I can understand where they come from, but I think maybe people in the U of A overestimated the allure of Cal because they probably felt like, hey, it's John Calipari, he'll be the coach. Everyone's going to come in droves just because Cal. And I think that that's obviously, been part of it. I think that not really caring about the common fan as much has been an issue. I think the fact that Arkansas and Bud Walton Arena holds 19,200 people, they sold every one of those tickets as season tickets. There's no general admission or anything. It's just season tickets, in which I get it. Financially, it makes sense. You get your money. But the problem is that, Arkansas and Fayetteville being in the northwest corner of the state, if somebody wanted to go to the Alabama basketball game on that Saturday, wanted to guarantee your ticket, the only way you could do that is by getting season tickets. Well, you're going to buy season tickets. Well, if you live in Hot Springs or in Pine Bluff, you're not going to be able to make it up to those games in the midweek. And you can try to sell them, but you're not going to get your money back because no one's going to pay for that in those games. So you just let them go to waste. And that's why you see so many empty seats. And they let a lot of corporations come in and buy seats to try to give away, but they don't. It's just gotten away from what the spirit of what it's always been is about the common fan, and the common fan feeling like they can walk in there and, be a part of it and not have to, spend an arm and a leg to just get there, and to make it easy on them, whether it's simple as parking or concessions or whatever. It's just all missing. It just seems like it's a very NBA vibe, corporate vibe, where nobody has really the ability to get to the games as easily. And when they get there, everything just feels weird and awkward and disconnected, even in the arena. Florida was the best atmosphere they've had so far this year, and it was pretty good. But as right now, I don't see how it's going to be better than that because the product on the floor is not there. And I think just the entire situation there, Bud Walton needs an overhaul here this offseason for sure.
Tough times in Fayetteville, but what's not tough is talking with our good friend again, John Nabors of Inside Arkansas. It is always a pleasure. Also the host of Locked on Razorbacks. John, you guys are doing great work. Let folks know in case they've been living under a rock. We're to check you out. We're to check out Inside Arkansas and all the great content you guys are publishing on a daily basis.
Yeah, appreciate it. So, we're on our YouTube channel at Inside Arkansas. We're always putting up our content daily, each and every day there. We do a live stream show starting at noon called Inside Arkansas Live with myself, Curtis Wilkerson, and Andrew Ellis. We do that. We also have social media at Inside Arkansas. We got a website at InsideArkansas.com. Find that. And also Locked on Razorbacks on YouTube, but you can also find it wherever podcasts are found too. So, all over the place, man. All over the place in every regard. And hopefully this spring ends up being a little bit more positive for Razorback fandom, because it's been a long time since I've had anything to feel good about. Maybe this spring some things will change for them.
Indeed. John, always a pleasure, man. Appreciate you taking the time and look forward to seeing you in Fayetteville soon, my man.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, man, as always.